Hello and welcome. My name is Anna Mason with Anna Mason Consulting. Today I'm going to do a short video just to help you understand the basics of PI. By the end of the session, you're going to understand the difference between your three graphs and understand why the width of a pattern matters. This is all important in reading and interpreting the PI data. First, a little background. What is the predictive index? It is a management development tool that's been in use since 1955. It is validated scientifically for the workplace. What it does is measure and define long-term predictable behavior. It provides objective, realistic information that can be used to define jobs, assess candidates, and employees. Most importantly, it helps people not only understand others, but also themselves and how they will relate and interact with others. PI really does help build perspective. When I show this can of Coke in my trainings, I ask people to describe it. I get so many different answers, everything from red to cursive to refreshing to unhealthy. That just shows that we all see things differently. Even though we're looking at the same item, we all have different perspectives. Let's go over our self-concept, and synthesis. The first graph is our self graph. That's what comes naturally to us. This is who we truly are. This is who we are at our best. It's also who we are at our worst. This is who we are most comfortably. The self-concept reflects how we're trying to modify our behavior in response to what we perceive the current demands of our situation to be. It's who we're trying to be. It's how we're stretching ourselves. The synthesis is how we actually behave on the current job. It's a combination of our self and our self-concept. So it's a combination of who we are and who we're trying to be. Sometimes we see great changes in the synthesis, and sometimes we don't. Let's look a little bit more at the elements of PI. We have our three patterns that we already talked about. These are the four factors. These are our four major motivating drives and needs. Right here is the norm or the midpoint. And here we have the sigma scale. There are 6 sigmas across each graph. The numbers below the graphs is called the M-score. So it's the total numbers of words checked per graph. And the M-score in the synthesis is the total number of words checked in the self graph plus the self-concept graph. Factor E is our 5th motivating drive and need factor. And then finally, our reference profile name. Let's look at the self pattern here. So again, we have our midpoint, which is the average expression of the 4 drives. And it's indicated here by a triangle. It's calculated mathematically, but a good way to think of it is a balancing point. It's like 4 kids on a teeter-totter. If you have your pattern in front of you, take a moment to find your midpoint. The midpoint is used to describe the locations of the points on the pattern. Anything to the right of the midpoint is considered high, while anything to the left is considered low. And of course, there's no judgment with that. High is not better than low. As PI factors move further away from the midpoint, either higher or lower, the associated behaviors become stronger or more forcefully expressed. Maybe you've seen something like this before. It's called a normal curve or a bell curve. It describes the way things are normally distributed in a large collection of data. For example, let's think about the SAT exam. Along the bottom, on the x-axis, there are all the scores that you could get on the SAT. Along the y-axis, going up and down, are the number of people who received that score. You can see here that most people have an average score close to the midpoint, which makes sense. A lot of people got average scores on the SAT. However, some people got better than average scores, and very few people got fabulous scores. By that same token, some people got lower than average scores on the SAT, and a few people got extremely low scores. We show that on a bell curve using these lines to indicate how spread apart the data is. These are called sigma lines, which is a mathematical term. As you move to the right, you can see that some people are moderately high, very high, or extremely high. And moving to the left, moderately low, very low, and extremely low. So here we have 68% of the people that have scores either on the midpoint, moderately high, or moderately low. That's referred to as one standard deviation or one sigma. Sigma is the statistical term. Then if you go out one more sigma, 95% of the people will be in this area. And if you go out one more sigma to the 3 sigma area, then 99.7% of people will be accounted for. Their scores will fall into this area. If a dot on your PI behavioral assessment is in the extremely high or extremely low area of the pattern, then only 2.1% of the people who took this assessment are there with you. That is all for now. If you'll stay tuned for my next video, I'm going to go over the 4 factors, the 4 major motivating and drives and needs. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.